Welcome. I'm glad you're here. We are talking about weight loss. Going deeper, we're in series number 3 now, and we're in the middle of series number 3. And this series is called What Should I Eat? So just in case you're coming in midstream, go back because you got to get back to the beginning of the series. I have an intro series, and then we started going deeper with the issue of hunger. The second was finding fullness. And this is series number 3, and you need the first 2 to really get to this one. And we're talking about what should I eat. So last week we talked about carbs, what we love and what we hate. And this week we're going to talk about protein. Now, I want to talk to my plant-loving people. Okay, I got to talk to you guys because there's always this question when you eat plant-based or you're vegetarian or vegan, and people say, well, where do you get your protein? So I want to address the whole protein issue real quick. And if you're a meat eater, you got to hear this too, okay? In going on 2 decades of medical life as a doctor, as a medical student, as all that, I have never, we read about it in the medical textbooks, but I have never, ever met any patient with the diagnosis of protein deficiency. I know the name, it's called kwashiorkor, but I've never seen it on a chart with a patient ever. So I want to say that because there are other deficiencies that people have that we diagnose all the time, but almost nobody is protein deficient, particularly in this country. But I think people get nervous when they think about going plant-based or vegetarian or vegan and go, well, if I'm not going to eat any meat, especially if I'm going to take out dairy, where am I going to get my protein from? And I think there's a misunderstanding that protein is not quite as critical as people, I think, really believe. There's a lot of discussion in weight management and the whole weight training and exercise about you got to get your protein, you want to build muscle, you don't want to, you want to burn fat and build muscle. And as you lose fat, you want to replace it with muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat and all that stuff. And that's all great. Okay. But the issue is a lot of people are packing the protein in, and it's probably not as critical that you get it from animal sources, and that maybe you get quite as much as you're thinking. So I know that's probably going to upset some people, but let me tell you, let me give you a reference. There's this really cool documentary that talks about elite athletes. It's called Game Changers. And these are vegan, like top of their game athletes, weightlifters, cyclists, on and on, fighters who eat no animal products at all whatsoever. And they talk about how actually their performance, they got an edge from going completely plant-based. So that's a cool documentary if you want to watch it. But I just wanted you to know if they can do that, and they definitely require more protein than us average people, we don't need massive quantities of protein either. But having said that, so that you don't worry, yes, protein comes in animal form. Chicken, beef, fish. You get protein from milk proteins if you're doing dairy. So we know that. Okay, good. The problem with the animal proteins is, in general, they come with something we don't particularly want, which is saturated fat. And that in and of itself is not great for our cardiovascular health and a risk for heart attack and stroke. Having said that, there are people who are doing a heavily meat-based diet, a ketogenic diet, and are changing their risk numbers that we watch, around their cholesterol and things like that. I think there are positive things to say about the ketogenic diet, and it's worked for many, many people. If that's the way you choose to go, I'm not making any arguments. Just know that there's not a lot of good long-term data on the effect of your health of your heart eating in that fashion. The ketogenic diet was started really as a diet to take people totally off of carbohydrates and sugar and create ketone bodies in the breakdown of the food so that their brain would function off of that instead of sugar. And it was designed for people who had seizure disorders before we had drugs for seizure disorders. And it actually cut down on the number of seizures folks were having when they ate this way. That's where it originated. It also does work to help people burn fat and lose weight. And so I don't argue with that. But what do we do if we're plant-based? I mean, where are we going to get our protein? Here's the good news. There's lots of ways to get protein if you're a plant-based. One of my favorite sources of protein for my diet is lentils. Lentils are great. Chickpeas, you get protein in nuts, seeds, so quinoa. So there's lots of ways to actually get protein as a vegetarian or a vegan. Obviously, if you're vegetarian, you're eating eggs or dairy, you're going to get protein there too. So all of this is to say, I don't want you to worry about protein too much. You're getting it. You're getting it in your diet. The only thing I do want to say, and this is going to go into our next video series, when you're really trying to push your body to burn fat, the things that work against you the fastest are carbohydrates, high levels of carbohydrate foods. The next down will be protein. And the lowest is going to be fats. So we'll get into that. We'll get into the hormones. We'll get into all those details, I promise. Not in this series, but in the one that we're going to do next. And I think it's really interesting science and it's good stuff. But all that is to say, I don't want you to worry about your protein, and I don't want you to overload yourself on protein, because it actually, you do too much, it can still work against your weight loss. Okay? So remember, we've now talked about carbs. We've talked about protein. Next, we're going to talk about fat. Okay? So come back next week. Join me. Don't forget, if you haven't yet, please subscribe so you don't miss the next videos and all the ones to come. And give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Make me some comments below so that I know, what you need and what you're thinking. And I will see you next week. Thanks for being here.